When I see the EA name on a product, there is an immediate and intense physical reaction in my body. Greedy monetization, buggy, incomplete games, dragging a single concept into an annual release series just for the money. They've ruined some of my favorite games over and over, and after a while I've just stopped giving them chances. So it's not often I find the game with the EA name that doesn't make me sad. But a couple years ago, I found one. Unfortunately for me, I'm the kind of guy that is easily sold by taking a name I respect and slapping it onto a random object. If From Software released a book about the life of one of the Elden Ring lobsters that attack you in the swamp, I would buy that shit and read it no questions asked. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is just one of those objects. There's just no way I wasn't going to try it out. Of course, it's a buggy mess, but the gameplay and the story are so much better than we can expect from Star Wars games these days. Lately, you either get one or the other, sometimes neither, but there are a special few that manage to have both. I recently saw the trailer for Jedi Survivor, the sequel to Fallen Order, and saw that it's coming in 2023. I got so excited that I replayed Jedi Fallen Order twice just to hype myself up for the new one. Jedi Fallen Order is one of the few games that defied my original expectations. EA had fucked up the return of Battlefront, so I was not expecting for this one to be any better than that. So after I heard about it the first time, I kinda turned my eyes away from it. But when it came out, I saw the poster art on Steam and I was hooked. Not only was it a new single-player Jedi story, but the main character was played by Ian from Shameless. They turned this guy into a Jedi.
I can explain this.
And I was like, you know what, I'm 100% on board with this. Take this brilliant actor and make him a Jedi. Not only are the graphics amazing, but Cameron Monaghan performed all of the motion capture animations himself, which adds this amazing fluidity to the feel of combat. It sounds kind of stupid, but the sci-fi Jedi combat feels just a bit more immersive because the animations look and feel so real. And no, I don't like repeating the famous IGN line of, this game makes you feel like a Jedi, but I can't deny that when you are in the middle of some of these boss battles, when you are so encaptivated by the significance of the scene, the intensity of the music, and the ease of the controls, you almost forget that you're playing a game. And the combat flows completely naturally, as if you yourself had been taught how to use a lightsaber, and pressing the buttons on your mouse is just muscle memory from a long time ago. Anytime you get locked in a lightsaber battle with an Inquisitor, you can't help but sit up in your seat and be totally 100% captivated by the action on your screen. Anytime you fight waves of stormtroopers and other small baddies, there are these moments where the stars align and all your attacks and parries come off perfectly, and you can't help but let out a little fuck yeah as you complete the last execution. Doesn't matter how many enemies they send your way, you have the power to defeat all of them with Jedi style and grace. I will also mention that the game is pretty buggy. You run into a lot of problems with the physics engine, especially when you use your force push. I would say that these bugs are a little embarrassing for a game with this much care and money put into it, but honestly none of the bugs are completely game breaking, so long as you don't mind some serious frame rate drops and object popping issues. It's still a worthwhile experience though. But let's talk about the most important part of the game, the story and storytelling. Star Wars is possibly the most expansive universe I personally have had the pleasure of diving headfirst into. I know a lot about Star Wars. Not everything, but a lot. I like a lot of the unique stories in Star Wars video games. So far, I haven't played a Star Wars game that has an absolutely terrible story, which is not to say that there isn't a bad story out there, but I've played quite a few and so far I've not been overly disappointed. Jedi Fallen Order's story surpassed my expectations. Some of it is a bit campy. Sometimes you're like, yeah, sure, of course, how convenient. But honestly, over the course of the game, you can't help but smile when the good guys do something good and the bad guys do something bad, which is exactly how Star Wars stories are told. Very easily defined good and evil. And in this story, you have a bit of a dynamic of riding the lines between the light and dark side of the Force. Multiple characters are going through this inner battle, and it's amazing because at this time in the overall Star Wars universe, Jedi are being hunted and killed, which makes it seem extremely believable that some of them would turn to the dark side out of necessity. You play as Cal Kestis, a Jedi who has been on the run from the Empire as they hunt and kill Jedi following the events of Episode 3 and the infamous
Execute Order 66.
While hiding out on the planet as a scrapper, Cal eventually gets himself in trouble and narrowly escapes a battle with an Inquisitor by jumping into a stranger's spaceship. From there, Cal joins Seer and Grease on a journey to uncover a hidden holocron, an encrypted Jedi message, by following in the footsteps of the Jedi Master that left the information for Cal to find. Along this journey, Cal reconnects with the Force as he has severed his ties after blaming himself for the death of his master, Jaro Tapal. But not only is Cal challenged by the Jedi Masters who are protecting the holocron and its information, but he is also being constantly hunted by Inquisitors, the second sister being the most prominent. Fight amazing bosses, uncover Jedi secret techniques and force powers, solve puzzles and climb walls like you're back playing Uncharted 4, and enjoy the power of immersive storytelling. But the true strength of this game comes from the impact of everything that you do. One of the things Fallen Order does well is strike a good balance between creating an expansive world but shepherding you into a linear story. For example, the planets that you go on are huge, and looking out past the horizon or down from the tops of the trees makes you feel like this is a living, breathing world. Like you could explore endlessly if you wanted to, but the maps are actually pretty small, packing all its gameplay into a winding set of linear tunnels that act as a way to get you from each story point to the next. You can definitely tell that the majority of the focus of this game was in the encounters and the storytelling, which makes sense because that's where the game shines. The impact of your actions is magnified intensely down to each swing of your lightsaber. Every battle is different and given an arena that builds the atmosphere for that specific fight. Fighting an Inquisitor in a small, compact area has you focusing on each parry of their lightsaber and using all of the tools at your disposal to catch them off guard. But they don't just use lightsabers, they also use force powers just like you, so you have to be quick on your feet and learn their style of fighting in order to beat them in your duel. Fighting huge beasts requires you to learn their movements, parry when it's available but dodge when they would simply overpower your block. One of the most unique boss fights is a battle with a bat creature that is trying to keep you from escaping its lair. This battle has phases, the first having you figure out how to bring the bat down to you so that you can actually deal damage to it, the second being outside the cave as you're basically fighting it as you fly around on the map. But the impact comes from the fact that the game requires you to use both your fast reaction Jedi combat skills and your force powers to overcome any challenge that it throws at you, which sets this game apart from normal hack and slashers with big boss battles. Just like God of War makes you use all of Kratos' badass godlike weapon skills, Jedi Fallen Order requires you to be a Jedi. It may seem like I'm exaggerating a bit, but I'm hoping it shows just how much I enjoyed this game. And part of that is because of how little I expected from EA, but another is just from how much work the Fallen Order team put into making this game. Yeah, you can see the missing polish in some areas, but the core gameplay is so fun that you forget all about the random issues you're having. Or better yet, you don't forget but you keep playing because you don't really care about them after a while. However, I will definitely concede that Fallen Order is not a perfect game. I've already mentioned a lot about the glitches and visual breaks while you're playing it, so let's talk about the actual gameplay. In order to truly enjoy Jedi Fallen Order, you have to keep in mind that it's really just a narrative-driven linear game. Every other aspect to the game is basically irrelevant, like exploration. The maps are winding but truly very small. I would say that it's much more akin to Uncharted 4 or The Last of Us. Your path is basically laid out for you, but if you look closely, there's a random hole in the wall that leads to a chest or a new echo that gives you a bit of background to the location. So even though the world looks vast and explorable, your options to do so are pretty limited. Fallen Order also uses the same technique as Zelda games to keep you from progressing too far before you hit the main story points. You can see the path to the next area, but unless you have a specific item or force power, you can't continue that way. That's not necessarily a negative, but as you are playing, you are reminded that your choice is to go forwards or backwards. Sometimes skew off the path to grab a collectible and then come back to the main path. So the gameplay is focused on three main parts: combat, story, and collectibles. I've already gushed about the combat and story, but the collectibles is where I feel the game falls short. There are a number of items to collect, but the majority of them aren't really impactful to your gameplay. It's a very small addition to the game that tries to scratch this exploration and collectathon itch, but I really wish there was more to it. The biggest problem I have with it is that when you find a hidden area or use an item or force power to traverse a path you've come across before, you don't know what you're getting as a reward. So if you take the time to complete the puzzle or travel to wherever that collectible is, you're rolling the dice on what you'll get. Sometimes you can see what it is you're trying to reach, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes you get an additional stim pack or increase your life or force meter, but sometimes you get a very slight color alteration to Cal's poncho. So if you're trying to go through the game looking for just a stim pack, life and force meter upgrades, you'll have to run into the 100 different cosmetic choices for Cal's poncho, his ship, the little droid buddy BD-1, and your lightsaber. I don't mind at all that these exist, and I personally kind of like my cosmetics, but I do recognize that it may be bothersome that some collectibles are incredibly impactful, but the majority are cosmetics that you will never use, or plants that you'll put in your ship just because Grease said he likes plants. The echoes do provide a bit of optional story that I appreciate, so I personally tried to find all of the hidden echoes. They fill your databank with lore and background information that makes the world feel a bit more fleshed out, but again, after the first time you listen to them, you really don't ever need to listen to them again. So on my second playthrough, I barely collected anything. There's so much more to talk about with Fallen Order. I could critique the level design and the AI, I could rave about the non-stop journey that is the Star Wars style music, but I'll stop myself here to talk about what might be coming next. I watched the trailer for Jedi Survivor like 10 times, trying to understand every little piece of information about what might be coming with the game. In summary, Cal Kestis is making a return, but it seems like he suffers a defeat, leading him to lose his lightsaber. which means that at least for a portion of the game, we'll be using other weapons. The main plot seems to involve finding this guy that has been healing in a back-to-tank for some time. I don't know if the back-to-tank guy is the same person as this evil-looking Jedi here, but it kind of looks like he's missing an arm in the back-to-tank, and it kind of looks like this Jedi only fights with one arm, so I'm just guessing. So what am I hoping for from Jedi Survivor? Well, of course, I really want the game to focus on what made the original so good. The combat and story are some of the best I've personally experienced in a Star Wars game, and could rival some of the best combat across the action-adventure genre. I would love to experience that same epic Jedi combat in a physics engine that can handle some of the tougher animations that come with force-pushing groups of enemies into walls. Which I think comes as no surprise that I hope the game ships without massive, immersion-breaking glitches and visual issues. I would love for the devs to fix the enemy AI, since Fallen Order ranges from some of the best boss battles ever to some of the dumbest minions in any video game. Stormtroopers may be bad at shooting in the movies, but in lore they are trained soldiers that know intricate combat maneuvers. Why can't they jump over small gaps? Why do they just sit there and stare at me when I'm just a bit out of reach? I'm hoping Jedi Survivor makes them a bit more intelligent so they pose more of a threat. This technically isn't a hack and slash, so I don't need hordes of one-dimensional enemies to mow down with my lightsaber. I want to feel the challenge of a proper battle. I know I complained a bit about the collectibles, but I don't really think Jedi Survivor should bring in too much in terms of defining a true exploration aspect of the game. That's just not what the game is, and trying to force exploration and collectibles into an action-adventure game ends up feeling pretty cheap and low effort. Although I would appreciate that it's there, I would rather they have like half of the amount of collectibles, and instead focus on making the puzzles to get them a little more intricate. If I want to take time away from the main progression path, make it worth my time. The puzzles should be enjoyable and require some thought or a combination of items or powers in a way I haven't used them before. The amount of them may be less, but the impact will be so much greater. And if they put cosmetics in the game, I'm totally fine with that, but can we please get more variation than just another way to use brown and yellow paint? The last thing I'll ask for from Jedi Survivor is to allow for the story to flourish and have a proper ebb and flow. Even though Fallen Order has a relatively great story, I don't think we got to spend enough time with any one story point. When Cal loses his best friend at the very beginning of the game, there was really no mention of it at all once Cal got to the main plot of searching for the Jedi holocron. When Cal gets captured almost completely randomly by some Mad Max mafia that Grease owed money to, Cal escapes, Grease says sorry, then it's really never mentioned again. There's a bit of dialogue between Cere and Grease that explain that he owed them money, but we don't really know too much about Grease to make that feel impactful at all. And that hurts other parts of the story too. Like eventually towards the end of the game, Cal and Cere feel accomplished that something went well, and offer Grease some sort of thanks for being a part of the team. But to the normal player, Grease just seems like a chauffeur who got us captured by the mafia once. And don't get me started on how little character development or actual game time we got with Marin, the Night Sister. I understand it happened extremely late in the game, but it seemed like she was supposed to be an important ally after she joined the party. It just didn't feel that way at all. She was only allowed about 5 minutes of talking, she hid the ship from the enemy's radar once, saved Cal and Cere from drowning, and didn't affect the story at all after that. For Jedi Survivor, I think they should focus on building out these characters a bit more. I really liked Cal, and loved to see his character growth over the course of the game, but his relationships with anyone other than Cere had little to no impact on the story. So I would like for the sequel to allow for enough storytelling that we understand other characters' growth. Whoever this one-armed Jedi is, I hope we get to understand what made him become evil, just like we did with the Inquisitor. Whoever this Senator is, I hope we get to understand exactly why he's important and have him be an impact on the story in multiple ways. I don't need an exhaustive list of characters. I would rather have a short list of characters with true depth. Either way, I'm extremely excited for Jedi Survivor, and I can't speak highly enough of Fallen Order. It's not perfect, but it's given me almost 100 hours of gameplay and a true single-player Star Wars experience that no fan of the franchise should miss. And now, as I finish this video, I will go play Fallen Order one more time on the highest difficulty and wait impatiently for another year until Survivor comes out. But most importantly, I hope you enjoyed the video. Leave a like if you liked it and subscribe for more content. I hope you enjoy your adventures in a galaxy far, far away, and I can't wait to see what we talk about next.